They said, lazy people always say, I can't afford it. I don't have the money. That's why they're poor. They have a poor mindset. So instead of figuring out how to raise money, it's just really easy to be a loser. And I call it losers. It pisses them off. Because we all have the power, if we wanted to not be poor if we learned how to raise money. But the reason I had to learn to raise money was because I had no money. And so if you read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, in there, my rich dad always said, never say, I can't afford it. My poor dad, my PhD father, he always said to me, he says, I'd be a rich man if I didn't have you kids. And I said, well, Dad, it's not my fault you had kids. I just can't afford it because I have kids. And the more he said that, the angrier I got. So when I met my rich dad at age 9, he says, well, that's why your old man's poor, because he's lazy. He thinks his PhD is going to carry him. He says, everybody can say, I don't have money, I can't afford it. He says, that's why he's poor. He's lazy. But my father kept going back to school, Stanford, University of Chicago, Northwestern. He never learned any of this stuff. They still don't know it, because most teachers want a paycheck, pension, and tenure. They want job security. So the mindset is different. And that's what they teach the kids. So the reason I say only lazy people use their own money is because it takes much more intelligence to raise capital. And so I've never been able, ever since my rich dad, since a little boy, my rich dad forbade me from ever saying, I can't afford it. He says, figure out how you can afford it. How can you do something? Figure out how you can do something. So over my lifetime, most of the projects I've started, I've never had any money. I like not having money because it forces me to think. I get creative. I have to educate myself. I have to talk to rich guys. Hey, how'd you do this? How'd you do that? How'd you do that? And what has happened to me, I just turned 72, I've never needed money. Because if I need money, I figure out how to raise it. So today you guys have crowdfunding and all that. I don't know what that stuff is. But it's easy to say I can't afford it. All the poor people say I can't afford it. All the poor people say, well, let's tax the rich. All the poor people are saying, well, give me a free education, free food, free schooling, free manicures, free pedicures. So, over my lifetime, I've raised hundreds of millions of dollars. And it's because I didn't have money as a young person that I learned how to raise capital. And it's really quite simple. You have to find an asset that's worth more than me. If they can't invest in me because that's called slavery, buy me, I started off looking for this one little piece of real estate. I found an excuse, this 1-bedroom, 1-bath condominium on the beach in Maui. And I found an excuse for people to give me the money. All I had to do is assure them I'd pay them back. So my first deal was an infinite return deal. I had no money in the deal because it was 100% debt. It was an $18,000 condo. You can't touch them for that much anymore, but the economy was bad. So I buy this $18,000 condo. The guy wanted 10% down. You don't need higher math. I could have used my money. I had the money, but that would be too easy. Only lazy people use their own money. And that's what really pissed off a lot of people out there. You calling me lazy? I said, yes, I am. Because you're the same type of person who will say, I can't afford it. I can't do that. That's the problem. It's up here. It's the real estate between this ear and that ear. I can't do that. Most of my family say, I can't afford it. My father taught me to say that. My mother taught me to say that. My rich dad should never say that. Well, number one is investing. Invest in what you love. I love business. I love real estate. And I love gold and silver. So I invest in what I love. Most people say, do what you love, whatever, to invest in what I love. But I love being an entrepreneur. I love investing. It's like Shark Tank to me. I'm always looking at new businesses, new deals. It's just a game like this. When you look at the financial statement, that's like your scorecard. It's like your golf scorecard. It's your financial statement. But as you know, our schools teach us nothing about financial statements. But it goes back to the original question, why did I say only lazy people use their own money? Because lazy people always say, I can't afford it. I can't do it. It's easy to say that. And that's why they're poor. The question I ask all over the world, what does school teach you about money? And the answer is nothing. And that's not a mistake. That's not an accident. But the way to keep the poor and middle class working hard is never teach them what the rich know. It's what the rich teach their kids about money, the poor and middle class do not. But our school system will never tell us that. And today in the world, America especially, is this gap between the rich and everybody else. And I know the game of the rich. My rich dad taught me, you know it because you're the banker. The game the bankers and the rich play is different than what they teach you in school. And that's the story of rich dad, poor dad. My poor dad, they don't know anything about money. And they're teaching our kids. And my rich dad was an entrepreneur who never finished school. So all of the pieces of the puzzle, when Fuller scolded me back in '83, the pieces of the puzzle and my life started to come together. It's not get a job, work hard, save money, and invest in a well-diversified portfolio of stocks, bonds, mutual funds, and ETFs. The financial industry is two things: debt and taxes. Debt and taxes. You see, debt and taxes make the rich richer, and debt and taxes make the poor middle class poorer. So that's why lesson number one in Rich Dad, Poor Dad is the rich don't work for money. What we do instead is we create businesses as entrepreneurs. We acquire real estate. I don't invest in stock markets. So the reason is because as entrepreneurs, I have more control over my income, how much I make, and how much I pay in taxes. And because I'm an entrepreneur as well as an investor in real estate, I pay zero tax. So every time I make, let's say, $1 million as an entrepreneur, I immediately invested in real estate and have a 4-to-1 step up. Today, the banks are charging you interest to save money. In other words, banks don't want your money because they printed too much of it. And that's why there's this bubbles in stocks and bubbles in real estate and all this. People are dumping the cash. Because as I said in here, savers are losers and cash is trash. Get out of debt is an obsolete idea. You should learn how to get into debt, how to use debt to get rich. The reason the 1% is way up here and the 99% are going this way is because when you print money, two things happen: inflation and taxes. It's crushing them. Well, I said, I want you to teach me about money. So why should I teach you? You go to school, my poor dad's not going to teach you. I said, oh, finally he acquiesced. He said, okay. He says, but if I teach you, you work for me for free. And I said, why for free? And my poor dad went nuts. He says, because if I pay you, you think like an employee. My poor dad said, go talk to your best friend's father, Mike's father. I said, why is that? He says, because Mike's father's an entrepreneur. And I'm 9 years old, so what's an entrepreneur? They're two different people.
Right.
Mindset-wise. Right. It's called an internal focus versus an external focus. So the real entrepreneur has an internal focus. But if they fall down, they say, oh, this is good, because I'm going to go up higher. The average person will fall down and say, oh, I'm going to take some Prozac. Or somebody has a mistake, so all the mistakes don't matter. Well, mistakes matter. It means you didn't know something. But a real entrepreneur, whether they fall down, they always can go up. They can stand back up and go higher. And no matter what happens to them, they get stronger and better and smarter and happier. But a person with a weak internal mindset is that they're so afraid of what happens, it generally happens. Like, people who are afraid of losing their jobs, they generally lose their jobs. You know what I mean?
Yeah, so everything
you can
comes from you.
Yeah, so the entrepreneur first job is to control inside here, not outside there. Well, it came from a lesson before Rich Dad. I was in Sunday school. My Sunday school teacher was a young, pretty woman, and she said, I'm like 9. And she goes, why were the three wise men wise? I go, because they were rich. They gave the swaddling Jesus gold, frankincense, and myrrh. So they had to be rich guys, I said. And she goes, no, that's not it. Well, they had gold, frankincense, and myrrh. Well, that's not it. So why were they wise? She says, what made them wise was they always sought the best teacher. And she says, if you're going to be successful in your life, you've got to find the best teachers. And so with that, when my poor dad said, go seek out your rich dad, I was just following her advice. So I've had a habit ever since then, or a policy, if I find out there's a great teacher, and a great teacher is somebody who comes from the inside, not the outside. Assets put money in your pocket, liabilities take money from your pocket. They count anything of value as an asset. They count your car as an asset, your house as an asset. When it's really taking money from your pocket. Your retirement plan, guess what? It's a liability. It's taking money from your pocket every month. And whose pocket does it go to? Wall Street or City of London. And that's why, as you and I know, these funds, they sit there, they go, assets under management. That's what they're paid on. Well, the reason the rich don't work for money is number one expense is tax. See, there's three kinds of income. Earned, portfolio, passive. So earned income is if I get a job, that's earned income. If I'm a doctor or a programmer, that's earned income because I'm working for it. If I buy, let's say, Apple for $10 and I sell it for $20, that's portfolio income, capital gains.
Yeah.
But passive income, which is cash flow, is never taxed. So it's not. And so these guys are screaming right now in America, tax the rich. I said, good luck. Because most of the guys complaining, they don't know there's three kinds of income. And the rich don't have jobs anyway. They have assets. And so the average schmo out there, poor guy, sent the kid to school. They don't learn this. So that's why in Fake, as you were talking about it, there's a newspaper article about Jared Kushner. And he explains how the Trumps and the Kushners don't pay taxes and make millions of dollars. And the reporter couldn't understand him because our schools will never teach you that three types of income.
And they judged him and say they're wrong and it's cheating. And we see that over and over again. Amazon not paying taxes. What do you say to people when they come up to you and say, Robert, it's not fair. It's not fair they're not paying taxes.
Well, there's always three sides to a coin, heads, tails, and the edge. So which side of the coin are you on? From my side, it's fair. But this is the difference. Everybody can do the same thing I do because the tax laws are for everybody. We don't say, well, the tax laws are only for the rich. No, the tax laws are for everybody to use if you have the right financial education. And the reason I'm an advocate of financial education, without that education, you have to pay taxes. You see, very few people will buy what I do, make $1 million and pay zero tax. That takes, and my rich dad taught me that playing Monopoly. That's how it started, 4 greenhouses, 1 red hotel. Or the McDonald's formula. I write about it here. McDonald's, Ray Kroc.
Yeah.
McDonald's is in the real estate business. So they sell hamburgers, but they buy real estate, so they pay no taxes. This guy Bezos, he's $16 billion. How much tax did they pay on that $16 billion? But the way to keep the poor and middle class working hard is never teach them what the rich know. It's what the rich teach their kids about money, the poor and middle class do not.